Good morning, Oklahoma. Welcome to Cow-Calf Corner. This week's topic is on the selection and development of replacement heifers. We're now, a couple of months since we've had much moisture all across the state. We're looking at high grain and feed prices, and wheat pasture looks pretty iffy right now that's been put in because of the lack of moisture. Typically, as we think about beef production, we know that cows that calve by the time they're 2, or heifers that will become cows that calve by the time they're 2, hold a lot more profit potential for us long term. Recent economic analysis indicates that a heifer that becomes a replacement, by the time she has paid back the cost of her development and maintenance, is going to be about a 7-year-old cow weaning off her 6th calf by the time she reaches a break-even point. So it's important that we get those replacement heifers developed so that they're ready to calve by 2 years of age. If we look at data, we see that there's a lot of evidence that cows that calve in the first 21 days of calving season, and accordingly would have bred in the first 21 days of breeding season, are more likely to stay in the herd, never be culled, have more longevity, and end up producing more pounds of weaned calves or more pay weight over their productive lifetime. So if we assess the age of our heifers as we're looking at replacements right now and thinking about that percentage or which heifers we're going to keep back to develop, age should definitely be a consideration, with preference given to those heifers that were born very early on in the calving season. More back to the point at hand, as we look at some high input and feed costs right now and potential lack of wheat, we know that they need to be about 65% of their mature weight. So if we take the average weights on our 4 to 7-year-old cows, those prime of life cows that should have reached maturity, and consider that the average mature weight in the cow herd, we then take about 65% of that, we arrive at the target weight that we need to get these replacement heifers to by the beginning of that first breeding season. The good news story is wheat pasture works great to develop those replacement heifers. They're going to gain 1.5 pounds a day or more and reach that target weight pretty cost effectively. This year, there's some question on that. Another part of the good news story, we've looked at some data over the years where we can basically let those heifer calves rough it through the winter, and initially here for the next few months not gain a great deal of weight, but then the last 60 days, maybe even the last 90 days going into breeding season, we actually feed them quite a bit harder and put a lot more gain on them. And we show that that slow, fast method of development, as we refer to it in chapter 29 of the beef manual, is pretty effective and can even be a more cost-effective means of putting that weight on them. Other things to consider as we think about development of those replacement heifers: if we're past weaning time or we're selecting them right now, do not use growth implants. That's going to slow down the onset of puberty. It's going to hurt fertility. That's pretty well documented. I do recommend using ionophores in your supplemental feed. That is going to give you a growth efficiency benefit with no downside to fertility in those heifers once they actually get there. And the third management tip on developing those heifers is we want to get them to an optimum body condition score by the time we reach that target weight. We really would like to target about a body condition score 6 on those heifers by the beginning of breeding season. There is evidence that heifers that are too fat and get beyond that to a great deal, we can actually see some depression of reproductive performance and breeding potential in them. Thanks for joining us this week on Cow-Calf Corner.